Wow, you've sent us a really fascinating mix of material for today's deep dive.
Yeah,
All about the art of storytelling and its importance in journalism.
it's a good one.
Yeah, we're diving into excerpts from the Harvard Write course,
Okay.
both the original and a Chinese translation, which I found fascinating.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we're also going to explore what a Sudanese refugee camp can teach us about the power of narrative, even in the face of tragedy.
Those sources offer some compelling insights into how stories shape our understanding of the world.
Yeah.
Let's start with that powerful anecdote from Jockey Benezinski about the refugee camp.
Okay.
What struck you about that story?
Honestly, it was the contrast. Imagine you're surrounded by unimaginable suffering, and yet every night people gather to sing.
Right.
It seems counterintuitive.
It does.
But those songs weren't just entertainment, they were a lifeline.
Exactly. The songs were how they held on to their history, their culture, their very identity in the face of unimaginable loss. It's a visceral example of the idea from the Chinese preface
Yeah.
that stories connect us across languages and cultures.
Yeah.
Remember that quote from Tomas Alex Tyson?
Oh, yeah.
Stories are how we make sense of our experiences, allowing us to travel through life without walking around blind.
It's powerful stuff. It makes you realize that storytelling isn't just a nice to have, it's fundamental to the human experience.
It is.
But how do we harness that power in journalism?
Well,
Catherine Boo argues that narrative is essential, especially when covering complex issues.
okay.
She worries that without a compelling story, readers might simply tune out.
Boo makes a great point about the role of narrative in capturing attention and fostering empathy.
Yeah.
She uses this analogy of being a passenger in a story,
Oh, interesting.
letting go of the need to control every detail, and instead allowing yourself to be carried along by the events and emotions.
Okay.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful stories emerge when we're open to unexpected detours, like when she missed her bus and ended up in a nursing home, which led to a story about neglect that may have otherwise been overlooked.
That's a great example of how stories can find you if you're open to them. But finding the story is just the first step.
Right.
How do you develop it into something compelling and meaningful?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, David Halberstam argues that every great story starts with a big idea.
Okay.
But what exactly does he mean by that?
That's not just a topic. It's a deeper understanding, a theme that resonates with readers on a fundamental level.
I see.
Think of his book, The Teammates.
Okay.
The big idea wasn't just baseball. It was about the enduring power of friendship,
Right.
using the story of these four iconic players to explore that theme.
Yeah.
And that idea sparked from a casual dinner conversation with Dominic DiMaggio.
Wow.
It goes to show that inspiration can come from unexpected places.
That's a great takeaway. So big ideas can be found in everyday interactions.
They can.
It's making those connections and seeing the universal themes within seemingly ordinary events.
Exactly.
Once you have that, I guess the next step is figuring out how to actually tell the story.
Right.
And a lot of that hinges on the interview.
Absolutely. And here's where Isabel Wilkerson's concept of accelerated intimacy becomes crucial.
Okay.
It's not just about asking questions. It's about building trust and rapport quickly to get to the heart of the matter.
Interesting.
It's a step beyond traditional interviewing, where the focus is solely on gathering information.
I love that term, accelerated intimacy.
Yeah.
But how exactly do you accelerate intimacy? That sounds tricky.
Wilkerson breaks it down into 7 distinct stages.
Okay.
It starts with the introduction, then moves to adjusting to each other's presence, finding a moment of connection, aligning perspectives, and finally reaching a point of revelation. She compares it to peeling an onion where the initial layers are superficial and the real insights are hidden deeper, only revealed when trust is established. Think of it as building blocks. Each stage creates a foundation for deeper connection and more meaningful conversation.
It makes me think about those initial interviews you do where everyone is on their best behavior and it takes time for the real person to emerge.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of pressure, isn't it, to create this sense of intimacy in a short time frame?
It is. And Wilkerson stresses the importance of humility, integrity, and empathy throughout the process.
Okay.
You have to acknowledge the power dynamic between the journalist and the subject and use that power ethically.
Right.
It's crucial to respect the subject's vulnerability, especially as they share their story with you.
Yeah.
Remember, you're not just mining information, you're engaging in a human interaction.
That's a great reminder that there's a person behind every story.
Absolutely.
But how do you even know if a story is worth telling? I mean, we all encounter interesting people and situations.
Right.
But how do you determine if there's something truly compelling there?
Ryan DeGregory suggests asking some key questions to assess a story's potential.
Okay, like what?
For example, what's the big idea? What universal truth does this story reveal? Or what makes this story unique?
Okay.
These questions help you move beyond the surface and discover the hidden gems within seemingly ordinary events.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about finding the universal thread, the so what, that connects with readers on a deeper level.
Exactly.
But sometimes even when you know a story is powerful, getting people to open up can be challenging.
It can be.
How do you go beyond those surface level answers and get to the real heart of a person's experience?
That's where those deeper interview techniques come in, and where the debate about recording interviews gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Some journalists, like Adam Hochschild, swear by recorders,
Okay.
especially when working with foreign languages.
Makes sense.
It allows them to be fully present with the subject without the distraction of note-taking.
Right.
But others, like Jackie Banazinski, worry that recorders can make reporters passive listeners.
I can see that.
They argue that the act of taking notes forces you to actively engage with the information and make choices about what's most important in real time.
Yeah.
It's about staying sharp, not just hitting record and zoning out.
Right. And then you have folks like John Franklin who take a more pragmatic approach.
Right.
They see recorders as a useful backup, but not a replacement for good old-fashioned note-taking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about using all the tools at your disposal to capture the richness and complexity of a conversation.
So there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to recording interviews.
It seems that way.
It's more about being intentional and understanding the potential benefits and drawbacks of each approach.
Exactly.
And I guess it also depends on your personal style and the specific interview situation.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
I think it's about finding what works best for you and for the story you're trying to tell.
Huh?
But let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about finding and developing stories, but what about the editorial perspective? How do editors help shape those narratives and ensure they resonate with readers? Editors play a crucial role in helping reporters refine their ideas and find fresh angles.
Okay.
Jane Wenner offers some insightful questions for editors to ask when working with writers.
Okay.
One that really stood out to me is, what are the enduring issues across time? It encourages us to consider the historical context and timeless themes that might be woven into a seemingly contemporary story.
That's a great point. It's about connecting the dots between the past and the present,
Yes.
showing how individual experiences reflect broader societal trends.
Exactly.
Like Wenner's question, is there a bigger trend at play?
Right.
It challenges us to look beyond the immediate events and consider the larger forces that might be shaping the narrative.
For instance, think about Dirk Johnson's article, When Money is Everything Except Hers.
Oh, okay.
It tells the story of a girl living in poverty in Dixon, Illinois, Ronald Reagan's hometown,
Right.
during a time of booming economic growth in the U.S. By placing her story within this larger economic context, Johnson challenges the prevailing narrative of prosperity
Yeah.
and reviews the stark realities of economic inequality.
Wow. That's a powerful example of how a well-chosen context can elevate a story.
It is.
It makes you think about how many untold stories are out there waiting to be connected to those bigger trends.
Exactly.
Wenner also has a question about counter-narratives.
Right?
I think that's such a crucial aspect of good journalism,
Right.
challenging assumptions and presenting alternative perspectives.
Absolutely. Consider the Monica Lewinsky scandal.
Okay.
Wenner suggests exploring the experiences of other White House interns during that time.
Interesting.
By shifting the focus away from the dominant narrative, we can uncover new insights and challenge preconceived notions.
Yeah.
It's about asking whose voice is missing from this story and actively seeking out those untold perspectives.
It reminds me of that saying, there are two sides to every story, but sometimes I think there are even more than two.
Right.
It's about finding those nuances and complexities.
Absolutely.
Speaking of finding those deeper layers, Wenner also encourages editors to look for the emotional truth within a story.
Okay.
She uses the example of Nathaniel Hurt, who shot and killed a teenager in Baltimore.
Right.
Initially, he was portrayed as a vigilante,
Yeah.
but reporter Laura Lippman dug deeper and revealed a more complex portrait of a man struggling with fear and despair in a troubled neighborhood.
Lippman's story highlights the importance of empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
It's about humanizing individuals and situations that are often reduced to simplistic headlines.
Right.
And that resonates with Guy Calise's approach,
Okay.
where he spent 5 months in China to truly grasp the context of Liu Ying's missed penalty kick.
Talese is a huge proponent of immersing yourself in your subject's world, right?
He is.
It's not just about asking questions, it's about experiencing their environment, observing their interactions, and absorbing those unspoken details that reveal so much about their lives.
Talese believes that true understanding comes from being present, from listening to the silences as much as the words. It's about being attuned to the emotional undercurrents that often drive human behavior.
It makes me think of Catherine Boo's approach of being a passenger in a story, allowing yourself to be led by the subject's experience.
Right.
Both Talese and Boo seem to be advocating for a kind of surrender, a willingness to let go of control and trust the process.
Okay.
But isn't there a risk in that? What about journalistic objectivity?
Objectivity is crucial, but it doesn't mean being detached or emotionally distant.
Okay.
It's about being transparent about your perspective and acknowledging your own biases while still striving to present a fair and accurate account of events.
Right.
And that requires rigorous preparation. Mark Kramer, in his 10 Reminders for Reporters, emphasizes the importance of thorough research.
Okay, so he argues that reporters should go beyond the basic facts and delve into the social, economic, and historical context surrounding their stories.
Exactly. It's about connecting the dots and showing how individual experiences reflect broader societal trends.
Right.
Kramer also introduces this idea of finding the right entry point to a story.
Mm-hmm.
He uses a clever analogy.
Oh, I like analogies.
Imagine you could start your story in Paris, Buenos Aires, or Boise, Idaho.
Okay.
If you have a personal connection to someone interesting in Boise, that might be the most compelling and authentic place to begin.
It's about leveraging those personal connections and finding those doorways that can lead to deeper levels of access and understanding.
Exactly.
And that's where preparation meets opportunity.
It is.
But even with thorough research and the perfect entry point, how do you keep readers engaged, especially when tackling complex or seemingly dry subjects?
Kramer points to John McPhee, who's written 4 books about rocks.
Mm.
He makes the case that even the most technical subject matter can be brought to life through vivid descriptions, engaging characters, and compelling anecdotes. It's about finding the human element within the scientific details.
That's so important. It reminds us that storytelling is about creating an emotional experience for the reader.
Yeah.
And sometimes those emotional connections come from the most unexpected places. Like Ryan DeGregory's example of a man in a bar recounting how he was tricked by 2 women.
It's not just a funny anecdote. It speaks to the power of storytelling as a social ritual, as a way to connect and make sense of the world.
So even a seemingly trivial story can hold a universal truth if you know how to look for it.
Exactly.
And that leads us to another crucial element that Kramer emphasizes: thinking.
Yeah.
It's not just about reporting and writing, it's about taking the time to reflect on your material and asking yourself,
Okay.
what aspects of this will resonate with readers? And what's the deeper meaning behind this event?
It's about going beyond the surface level and finding the heart of the story, the essence of what you're trying to convey.
This brings us back to Wilkerson's concept of accelerated intimacy.
Okay.
She believes that the most powerful stories are often those that reveal something deeply personal and vulnerable about the subject.
Right.
And that requires a delicate balance of empathy and journalistic integrity.
It's about creating a safe space where the subject feels comfortable enough to share their deepest truths. It's about recognizing the power imbalance between journalist and subject and using that power ethically and responsibly.
Wilkerson sees the interview as a guided conversation,
Right.
where the overall interaction is more important than specific questions and answers. It's not just about extracting information, it's about connecting with another human being on a profound level.
Yeah,
But we've talked a lot about the emotional aspect of storytelling.
we have.
What about the technical side? How do you actually structure a narrative to make it compelling and engaging for the reader?
It seems like we've been circling around this idea of structure
Yeah.
throughout our conversation.
Yeah.
The Chinese preface to the Harvard Write course really emphasizes how crucial structure is to crafting a captivating narrative.
It draws a fascinating parallel between narrative journalism and other forms of storytelling,
Right.
arguing that a good piece of journalism, just like a compelling novel or film,
Right.
needs that solid structure to hold it together.
It's the foundation.
Think of it like a blueprint for your story.
It provides a framework for arranging your material in a way that draws readers in and keeps them engaged.
So it's not just about having great content, it's about how you present that content.
Exactly.
The preface talks about having a clear beginning, middle, and end, just like any good story.
It's classic storytelling structure.
It makes me think about how crucial those opening paragraphs are.
Oh, yeah.
Setting the scene and hooking the reader right from the start.
Absolutely. You want to create a sense of anticipation,
Right.
pique the reader's curiosity, and make them want to keep reading.
You have to grab them.
And as the story unfolds, you need to build momentum, develop conflicts, and guide the reader toward a satisfying resolution.
So there has to be some kind of payoff.
It's like taking them on a journey with a clear destination in mind.
And that journey has to be well-paced, right?
It does.
The preface talks about the importance of pacing and rhythm in storytelling,
Okay.
and how readers experience a story not just intellectually but emotionally. I guess it's about finding that balance between providing enough information to keep the reader informed but not overwhelming them with too much detail.
Exactly. You want to create a sense of flow, a rhythm that carries the reader along and keeps them engaged.
Okay.
Think about how a musician uses tempo and dynamics to create a mood or evoke an emotion.
Yeah.
It's the same with storytelling.
That's a great analogy. It's like you're composing a symphony with words.
I like that.
And just like music, a story needs to appeal to the senses.
It does.
The preface encourages writers to use vivid language and sensory details to bring their stories to life.
Okay.
It's about painting pictures with words, creating a truly immersive experience for the reader.
Imagine you're reading a story about a bustling market in Marrakesh.
Oh.
You want to feel the heat of the sun on your skin, smell the spices in the air, hear the clamor of vendors hawking their wares.
You want to feel like you're there.
It's those details that transport the reader into the world of the story and make it come alive.
And just like every song needs a unique melody and arrangement, every story needs its own distinct voice and tone.
Absolutely.
The preface emphasizes that a story about a heart-wrenching tragedy will have a different tone than a story about a triumphant victory.
Think about Guy Talese's immersive reporting style.
Okay.
He often embeds himself in his subjects' lives, observing their behaviors, listening to their conversations, and capturing those nuanced details that reveal their character and motivations.
Right.
His voice is often observational, almost novelistic in its detail and depth.
It's like he's painting a portrait with words, using those fine brushstrokes to create a vivid and textured image of the person he's profiling.
Exactly.
But it's not just about observation, is it?
Well,
Talese also stresses the importance of empathy in storytelling.
okay.
He believes that to truly understand a person's story, you have to be able to see the world through their eyes,
Right.
to connect with them on a human level.
It's about recognizing that everyone has a story to tell, and that those stories deserve to be told with respect and sensitivity.
Yeah.
Talese often writes about people who are overlooked or marginalized, those whose stories might not otherwise be heard.
It's giving a voice to the voiceless.
He gives them a voice, allowing them to share their experiences and perspectives with the world.
That's such a powerful reminder of the responsibility we have as storytellers.
It is.
But with so much material, so many details and anecdotes, how do you decide what to include and what to leave out?
Right.
I imagine that can be one of the biggest challenges in narrative journalism.
Catherine Boo offers some great advice on that.
Okay.
She believes that 3 well-chosen examples backed up by solid evidence
Okay.
can be more effective than 20 anecdotes that just skim the surface.
Right.
It's about making strategic choices, focusing on the details that will have the greatest impact on the reader.
It makes me think about that quote attributed to Mark Twain. I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one instead.
I love that quote.
It often takes more effort to be concise, to distill your material down to its essence.
Absolutely. And it's about finding the right balance between showing and telling.
Okay.
A good narrative will weave together vivid descriptions, compelling dialogue, and insightful analysis to create an immersive experience for the reader. Think of it like layering. Each element adds depth and texture to the story.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
We've explored the power of narrative, the importance of finding a big idea, the nuances of interviewing,
Right.
the role of editors, the need for thorough research, and the art of structuring a compelling story.
We've seen how personal anecdotes can illuminate universal truths, how historical context can add depth and meaning to a story,
Yeah.
and how empathy and understanding are essential for capturing the essence of the human experience.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that compelling storytelling is about more than just presenting facts.
Right.
It's about connecting with readers on an emotional level, making them feel something, making them care.
And remember, like those songs in the Sudanese refugee camp? Stories have the power to connect us, to help us make sense of the world, and to remind us of our shared humanity.
So what stories are waiting to be told in your own life? And how can you use the power of narrative to bring those stories to life?
That's the question.
That's something to think about as we wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.